problem that's sadly all too common, but perhaps it's not talked about enough. If you're single, working in a profession that entails long hours, or belong to a particular religion, and if you've ever gone house hunting, then chances are you'll know exactly what we're talking about. Call it bigotry against bachelors or against a particular religion, letting out flats or living in housing societies seems to bring out the worst in a lot of people. Well, actor Konkona Sensharma has decided to call out the bigots after she was denied entry to her friend, writer and filmmaker Alankrita Srivastav's flat in an upscale housing society in Mumbai. Both of them join us this evening to talk about exactly what happened. Now, Konkona, a lot of us, especially women who've worked in the media and similar professions, have faced, what, for want of a better word, I'm just going to call housing discrimination. So we're very glad that you've decided to come out and talk about it. But will you begin by telling us exactly what happened?
Hi, Ankita. Yeah, yesterday I was going across to my friend Alankrita's house, and I knew they'd been having some trouble, but she's been staying there for, this is her 4th year now. And, initially I was going in, but I've gone several times before, but then this time, there were at least 3 or 4 guards who stopped me and who were very clear, and they said, no, nobody is allowed to go up to that flat. And then, then Alankrita came down. First I fought with them in the sense I said, what is the reason? Why can I not go up? She's my friend, and is there is there some kind of a police case, or is there, some, proper reason for not going up? But they couldn't really say anything. They were talking on the phone to somebody. They said, nahi, allowed nahi hai. Meanwhile, I called her and she came down, and then eventually we did manage to go up. But there's been some history of harassment in a sense that Alankrita has been facing that she can tell us about.
Now, Alankrita, would like to hear that story also from you. But, I just want to make it clear that it's not just finding flats in this sense. This is a flat that you've actually lived in for some time. So what really went wrong, and why do you think you're facing this kind of discrimination?
So actually, I moved into this apartment about almost 4 years ago, and there was no issue at all for the first 3 years. So this entire drama started when I renewed my lease this year in March, because last year in I think September or October, the housing society passed some kind of a law in their general meeting saying that they didn't want any single people living in the building. So when my lease came up for renewal, though I renewed it and it's a properly registered lease, the housing society said that even though you have a lease, you should leave. But my landlord, of course, he was really nice and very supportive, and he's like, I'm not going to ask her to leave because, there's no reason for her to actually leave. So this has been going on since March, where they've basically been trying to put pressure on me to actually vacate the apartment because they don't want any single people living there, even though there's never been any problem or whatever. And for the last 3-4 weeks, they started this new thing where they wouldn't let my maid enter the apartment. They wouldn't let grocers come and deliver food stuff to my house. So this went on for like a week where just nobody was allowed to enter. And then they sort of called it off because I spoke to one of, I told somebody that this is just wrong because there's no food in my house and stuff. But now, of course, yesterday, they didn't allow Konkona inside. So they just,
you've decided to go public with that. Yes. And we really welcome that. But really, I do want to sort of bring in the point that this seems to be something that's been faced by a lot of people a lot of the time. And it's not just about single women as such. Single men have said there are landlords that they speak to, brokers who they speak to, and they seem to have the same problem as well. Konkona, many people from Bollywood, including perhaps some of the biggest names out there, saying that they've been discriminated against on grounds of their religion. So it's really quite all pervasive.
Exactly, and actually that's what I also, that is true. And there were a lot of people on Twitter who got back and who said that, this is, it's not just against single women, but also for single men, they discriminate against. But the question is that how can you discriminate against a person based on, their marital status or on their religion? These are not grounds for discrimination. And I think that that's the problem, that, the cooperative societies can't have so much power that they kind of overpower your own constitutional rights. If you cannot, if there is a particular problem with a particular person living and there's a law and order problem, then that has to be solved with calling in the police or fixing those kind of things. But you can't just discriminate against all single people, or
I think that's a very important point that you raise,
or even vegetarian or non-vegetarian,
Exactly, and there are colonies that do that, and they say that they've been also formed on the basis of their religion or their beliefs on vegetarianism, and therefore they prevent non-vegetarian people from buying in or living in those societies. But really, what does the law say on this? Is this a grey area really? Shehzad Poonawalla, you've as a lawyer and an activist, taken this on. You actually you came across an advertisement about an upscale Mumbai property where the dealer actually said in so many words, no Muslims. No Muslims. And that's when you decided to file your petition. Yes. Tell us a little about that.
See, like you said, it's not just about single women. It's a lot of discrimination. I in fact call it that there is housing apartheid in India against a disempowered community, not in the negative sense when it comes to women.
But I think in this case, women are a disempowered community as well.
Yes,
because there seems to be so much stigma attached to being a single woman.
Absolutely. But I just don't want to offend any feminists here. But what I'm trying to get at is that Northeast, whether it's Northeastern people, whether it's Muslims, whether it's lower caste people, whether it's people with different sexual orientation, or like a story that NDTV had done, the children of a sex worker weren't allowed to stay in a particular house. So you see, discrimination is happening and it's quite rampant. I call it apartheid. It's not just restricted to Mumbai, it's across our metropolitan cities. Now, how do we deal with this? We have constitutional rights, but those constitutional rights are exercisable against the state, not against private entities. But there are laws that we can emulate, like in America, you have a fair housing legislation that applies not just to public housing, but even to private housing, which can prevent discrimination in the language that is used while renting out apartments, in the access of finance for apartments, in preventing things like blockbusting, that is, you all come together and all Hindus come together, leave out Muslim, or all Muslims come together, leave out Hindus. So these kinds of things, if we can put in place a fair housing policy, this is what I argued for when I went to the National Commission for Minorities. They had taken it up, but for some reason they didn't follow it up. I would think that it's an apt case. I think Konkona's case and a friend's case is an apt case that the Ministry of Women and Child Development, the National Commission for Women, should take it further, get stakeholders like we have the real estate developer here, the portals, the construction people, the brokers, all of them together, social activists.
Okay, Alankrita, I want you to come in on that. Now, as a writer, a filmmaker, someone who's sort of talked a lot about women's issues in a sense, you make films about women. You've done Turning 30 with Gul Panag. You've done another independent production which also talks about women and their secret lives. So, do you believe as a woman that this is a cause that you need to champion and perhaps bring to the public light in a way that it's going to make it hard for real estate brokers, for potential landlords to sort of now, continue with this kind of discrimination?
Yes, of course, I feel that we definitely should do something, and I would love to champion the cause. It's just that sometimes I think it becomes very hard because you feel you're very alone and battling a system that is absolutely not geared towards supporting any such sort of action. So even if I were to take action, what happens is that as a tenant, I have very limited rights, and there's not much I can do in terms of legal action because I'm dependent on my landlord. The day my landlord feels that, all this is getting too much for him, he can give me a notice to leave in within 30 days.
See,
so in terms of actually taking legal action, it's hard, but definitely like creating awareness, I would definitely want to do something about it because I feel that it is a burning issue. And actually I've lived in Bombay for about 11 years and I've always lived alone. And this is the first time ever that I have encountered such a problem. And I've always lived as a single woman and I've never had any issues. So I think even for me, this has been a sort of some sort of eye-opener because I didn't even realize how deep-rooted this kind of discrimination actually
but
is.
Alankrita, I can tell you this from my own experience and from those of my colleagues. When you're from a particular profession, whether it's the media, and you're a single woman, then this is something that we actually come across on a fairly regular basis. And I want to bring in Nishant Singhal also, who joins us this evening from, he's the director of Investor Clinic Infratech, one of the country's largest real estate brokerage firms, and someone who deals with a lot of potential clients who are wanting properties and so on. So you say that housing societies can actually make up their own bylaws and it's legal to do so.
So they can make their bylaws, but the bylaws cannot be in contravention of the normal legal rights of citizens.
Right.
So for example, cooperative societies can have certain bylaws to specify certain conditions regarding admission of members. So for example, they can say that they can be only professionals like doctors, lawyers. So, but this is the first time I'm seeing this kind of instance where a society is saying that a single woman cannot stay in a particular society.
It's just horrifying, right? She's lived in that house for 3 years and suddenly
it's actually not very, I'm surprised that he's seen it for the first time. I can tell you from a city where I come from, Pune, which has a large number of young population, a lot of people from north come to study there. They have this mindset. Now you have to address it at two levels. The legal level, as you rightly said, the bylaws are there. Society bylaws are framed by themselves. It has to be under the Cooperative Societies Act, and it has to be under the okay with the Constitution.
Right.
But there is no particular law that gives you the right when her rights have been violated in her specific case, unless her member of the society, that's a landlord, takes it up. She can't do anything.
Right.
So that's why I am saying we need a fair housing legislation that will encompass rights even of tenants. But on the second level, let us see the mindset. There is a mindset. Why is this happening again and again?
Yeah.
The mindset that pre-exists in this entire situation is bordering on patriarchy. It's bordering on not allowing people to live with within their free rights. It's about controlling people. I think this mindset also needs to be addressed at a larger societal level, as do we need to address the legal issue, which is coming up with a fair housing policy that gives rights to tenants like Alankrita, which she doesn't have currently.
Konkona, I want you to talk about this larger problem really of facing mindsets. What is it about single women that potential house owners find quite so threatening? I mean, there seems to be this idea that if you rent a flat out or if you sell a flat to a single woman, then immediately the moral tone of the entire neighborhood is going to come down. So, you know, what do we do to change that?
That's right. No, you know, the thing is, actually I was surprised and to learn that it's actually a lot of single men also face this problem. It's not just a problem for single women, but the thing is that single women generally are such a marginalized and community that, I mean, single men actually can get away with so much more that that is why it becomes more of an issue. But the thing is that you can't discriminate against anybody based on their marital status. And the problem here is the mindset, as he said so rightly, that we are becoming a very intolerant people. If you have, obviously you have to, your laws have to support your constitutional rights, of course, but how are we behaving in society in such an intolerant fashion, and how is that regularly okayed? And I think there's this fear of people being different, and there's a lot of people on Twitter told me, but there are families living in the building. There were a lot of people for this, there are families living in the building, and your friend or a single woman or a single man can be up to all kinds of activities which they're not okay with. Now this is discrimination, because you cannot say that a certain group of people will be like this, therefore we will preempt those problems and not give them housing. They are working people and you need people. I mean, and especially Mumbai, is full of people who've come from all over the country,
from all over the
world, who are working here, and we have to support that. What we can't support is disorderly conduct. Obviously, if there are things which are going on which are illegal, then that has to be addressed. So that law and order situation, that has to be addressed. You have to get cops and you have to get these things eradicated. Now that is not a very efficient system, unfortunately, we all know, but the cost of that can't be that you're not going to allow people who are single to live in your housing society, or that you can't allow Hindus or Muslims or whatever against a particular religion. You can't do that. That should not be allowed. Even if that is the case right now.
A large number of times,
bylaws are man-made, and that should not be allowed.
Right.
A large number of times, the garb of that people coming in the society will create ruckus it's used as a garb, it's used as a cover for stereotypes that exist in minds of people. For instance, like I was saying, that in the old parts of Pune, where a lot of colleges are located, they feel that all people from Delhi are drunk, rich brats. and they will not allow them to live in Delhi, in their apartments. They will put a notice saying that we will not take any boys or girls from Delhi. They can't stay. My mother is a chairperson of a society, and we didn't allow a lot of single people to live.
I want to take this back really to someone who knows the real estate market very well, and I think this is a question that we do need to pose. Are we seeing this sort of really rather seamy underbelly of the real estate market? Is apartheid then a reality? You know, when you hear talk of an upscale building society coming up only for Muslims simply because they're being denied flats anywhere, they can't buy anywhere else, and therefore, you know, you're targeting this, making that a marketing strategy. What does that say about the realty market?
We need to see it in two parts. So one part is normal buying and selling of houses. Okay, so for example, developers are selling to normal clients. I have not seen any application form which says that you specify that if you are single, you won't be given a flat, you can't buy a flat.
No, of course, it won't be spelt out in so many words. Though it was apparently in this advertisement that Shahzad
only in case of tenancies where it's a contract between two individuals that it gives people an opportunity to think whether they should do it or not. In normal buying and selling of transactions, I have generally not seen these kind of conditions coming into play, that developers don't want to sell houses to single women or single men or of a religious community. For example, this instance.
Well, I think a lot of people here would disagree with you tonight, because it's not the sort of thing that you spell out perhaps on a contract, but it's a discrimination that is just below the surface. Shahzad, very quickly.
In fact, somebody has just tweeted me and you know, just a couple of months ago, there was this entire thing in UP about an all-Muslim society. Now see, these people, I mean, nothing negatively, but their incentive is purely profit. So if somebody wants to live in an all-Muslim society, they'll offer that. If they want all-Hindu society, all-Jain, Parsi society, they'll offer it.
Will offer,
But the point is here that even if you're running a business and you're doing it for profit, you have a social responsibility, and that social responsibility needs to be made enforceable by the government upon these people through a legislation, or else they are going to do whatever it takes for their profit.
No, but there are army welfare organizations, railway employees welfare organizations.
Konkona, last words to you.
We can't
do you believe legislation, as Shahzad Poonawalla is pointing out, is the only way to go, or really is this more about sensitization, more about sort of really convincing people that single people, whether men or women, are not a threat?
Yeah, not just single people, but also, you have to do both. Obviously, tenants have to have rights, and you have to have that fair housing legislation that he said is modeled on in the US. That, of course, I think that's a great idea. But other than that, we also have to address mindsets. Because you see, this is all going to happen under the surface, it's going to continue.
Right.
And in fact, a lot of it just continues anyway. The thing is that if we are going to live, you know, in society, the only thing that we can agree on is that we're not going to let other people, cheat, get away with murder, robbery, these kinds of things. We can have a law and order issue. But you can't keep out people, you can't keep making, your own groups and further subdivisions, because that will just create further problems which will manifest in different ways and in much worse ways actually. The thing is, we have to learn to live together. And
ironically,
it's okay if other people are vegetarian and I'm non-vegetarian. It's okay if other people, are from a different religion and we live near each other. It's okay. That is the mindset which has to be changed, and that can't just be changed through legislation. That has to be changed in education and what we say and what we think and how much we allow and what we let people get away with it every day, all the time.
I think those are absolutely wise words. And frankly, this came up before the Supreme Court, and they said in the case of a Parsi building society, a housing society, that it was all right for people not to belong to or keep people out of their society. But if that kind of impinges on people's rights, equality particularly under the Constitution, where does that leave us? And does the law then need to be relooked at?
I think exclusivity versus discrimination are two different debates. That's a point on exclusivity, but I think exclusivity breeds and leads to discrimination. But let me just tell you one thing on the mindset. You see, you have the Bharatiya Janata Party, its student wing, propagating ABVP, saying that don't have live-in relationships. So I'm saying this is where the mindset of this country is going, and they have been voted into power with a tremendous majority. I fear and I shudder that this is the kind of language that this country has started
let's not
speaking.
make this a political discussion tonight. This was about a specific problem, and a problem that's faced by many people, and this may not necessarily have anything to do with just religion, but also people's right to choose the lives that they lead.
It's all interrelated, the politics,
exactly.
It's all interrelated.
Exactly.
Yes, that's what he's trying to say. It's all interrelated.
Okay,
but you have to have an open mindset overall.
Absolutely.
Judgment that people pass, I think that's the worst sort of thing.
But
well, Alankrita, we
we
wish you luck with your fight, and we hope that this is going to become a larger campaign. Thank you very much for speaking out about this tonight. I think this was something that needed to be talked about, and you've done just that.